So reading guitar tab is pretty simple once you've got your head round it. But just before we dive into exactly how you read tab, it's worth throwing in there the other ways we can read music and the very common ones that come up online, because tab is not the only thing you'll see. So let's just start with classical or traditional music notation, right? So in this lovely lesson, I will be assisted by the beautiful blackboard of learning. Look at that. Now that, what I'm looking at there, I've done this beautiful drawing earlier, is just a very basic example of traditional music notation. So you'll have seen this, I'm sure you'll have seen this, whether it's, you know, as a piece of art somewhere or actually looking at some sheet music. But this is the traditional way, you know, if you're learning the piano or whatever it might be, you will typically learn music notation like this. And this gives you everything. So this is like your, you know, this is the pièce de la résistance. If you're really going to get into it and you're going to play classical or, you know, much more kind of old school styles of music, perhaps, this is a great style, but it's not for us on the guitar necessarily, certainly not initially, because this gives you everything. It tells you not only what the notes are, so what these are all different note names, as in A or B or C or whatever, but it also tells you the rhythmical value that you need to be playing. So I wanted to throw that out there very quickly to say that, you know, if you want to, for example, maybe take some grades later down the line and you want to play classical guitar or anything like that, or you're studying at school, that is a worthy source of understanding notation. But for most guitar players, myself included, that's not something that's necessary in any way, shape or form. What we typically do as guitar players is we use tab to learn the notes, and it gives us a rough idea of the rhythm, and then we use our ears generally for the rhythm, okay? So that's the first thing to bear in mind, that you can find musical notation. So that's one way of learning something from paper. The next way I'll say, just before we get to tab, again, is using chord charts. So this is another thing that will pop up in all of our courses and all across the web. So a chord chart can look so many different ways. And one way that I like it, I'm gonna go out on a limb and say probably the most common way, is something like this. So let's just write a very simple chord chart. So something like this, right? So this is just to say chord charts are for chords, not for single notes, they're for chords. So this is to say that we're going to play a C major chord, an A minor chord, and a D major chord. And we're going to play the first bar, i.e. between these two lines, will be a C major. The second bar will be an A minor, and the third bar will be a D major. And crucially there, it involves an understanding of bars. So the fact that within a bar, we've probably got, depending on the time signature, we've got 4 beats, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we're on to the next chord. So that's another way that you can read music online, okay? And the chord chart doesn't stop there, okay? Like something that people, like, I'm not that into it, but if you ever go to, you know, those classic websites, I won't name them, but classic websites where you can find the lyrics and the chords above the lyrics, that is another way to do a chord structure kind of thing. So let's just take an example here, right? So let's just write a lyric. So let's say, I've got a little, where I've got my chalk, there's Scooby-Doo written there. So I'm gonna write Scooby-Dooby-Doo. This will go over anyone's head that has never watched Scooby-Doo. Scooby-Dooby-Doo, where are you? So like, there's our lyrics, if you like. There's our lyrics, Scooby-Dooby-Doo, where are you? And then what you'll see above the lyrics is a suggestion of what chord needs to be played. So let's say, for example, let's make this really dark. Scooby-Dooby-Doo, where are you? So this is to say that this could be the chord progression. Oh, I'll get that right. So E minor starts over the of Scooby. Dooby-Doo is where the A minor comes in. The B7 is where are you is the E minor. So this has got a lot of flaws in my opinion. If you see this style of playing, I mean, the concept is something like, so I've got an E minor, an A minor, a B7, and an E minor. So I would have had a rough idea. It would be like, Scooby-Dooby-Doo, where are you? So, but there's no real intention of like, well, what's like, is it like a bar of E minor? Is it a bar of A minor? Is it half a bar of E? Could be like that. It could be like that. That's the point. It doesn't give you much. That style of writing out chord structures as another way of reading music online is a very rough guide, very rough guide. And I generally prefer the previous one where we put in the kind of, at least you know, okay, well, C is for one bar, E minor is for one bar, etc., like that. So there are, I'd say, three other ways to read music online. You've got your notation. That takes a lot of work, very hard, probably not beginner friendly, certainly on the guitar. It will actually slow down your progress initially on the guitar, to be honest, but something to pick up later on. The chord chart, which is obviously going to help you learn songs quickly, and the chord chart's great because it gives you, I'm doing C for one bar, D for one bar, etc. And then thirdly is the fact that you can have the idea of the note of the words and a rough idea of where to put the chords, and then you've got to use your ear for the rest of it. I just wanted to get that out of the way because I think it's important to note that tab isn't the only way of reading, you know, guitar music online. Okay, there are those three others. Now, let's actually get down to tab. So that's the main reason you're here. You want to actually learn how to read the tab. What is all this gobbledygook? So the main thing to understand is that the tab gives you the notes that you're playing, where to play them on the fretboard, and it gives you a very rough idea of rhythm, as in it will give you kind of a bar of time and what notes to go in that, and then you will need to use your ears. Okay, so this is where in the long term, understanding a little bit of the notation in terms of the kind of the rhythm of the notation of the classical music, the first one I showed you, combined with tab is your perfect solution. For me personally, what I've done in my career as a guitar player, and it's never stopped me, I've got a degree, I've done university, college in music, and obviously now run a extremely successful guitar academy. It's using the tab to find the notes and then using my ears to learn the rhythm. That's what I would suggest. I think that's a great all-rounder because you're practicing ear training as well as learning to read the notes. So let's dive into the notes themselves. So I'm going to bring up my trusty blackboard again, get rid of the Scooby-Doo vibes, and let's just start with this basic. Okay, so what we're looking at when I write out a piece of guitar tab, and we are going to keep it really basic here, okay? And do bear in mind that we've written all this up really clearly in a blog post defining all of this, and we'll link to that below. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is a very wide, wavy piece of tab, but let's just go with it. So when we're looking at this, right, okay, so we've got 6 horizontal lines, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Each one of those lines is a guitar string. So unlike sheet music notation, this is extremely visual. This is just the guitar. Imagine the guitar being like, this is the headstock of the guitar here. So I'm just going to crudely put the tuning pegs. So imagine that the headstock is here and there's one tuning peg on each side. So it's upside down, because if I was to play that, I would play it like this, right? Ding, 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 a ding, ding, a ding, a ding, ding. So this is my low E string. This is A string, so I'm just going to write this here. So let's grab another one here. So I've got the E string, the A string, the D, the G, the B, and the E. So they're the 6 strings on the guitar. So when you're looking at tab, it's actually upside down compared to the guitar neck. So this is the low E string, and then we go all the way to the high, as in that the thinnest E string and the thickest E string. So that's the first thing to understand. It is upside down and each one is a string. Okay, so just look at your guitar, look at the thing, try and get that into your head first. Then we need to establish what are the numbers on here. What's this numbering system? So let's just write a couple of rando numbers on my tab. Okay, so I'm gonna write a 3, and a 4. This is gonna sound brilliant. So here's a bit of tab now, right? So very basic. So, but what this is saying is essentially on the A string. So here is my A string because it's on the A string. Oh, God, I can't do this backwards. There you go. A string all the way across. I'm going to play the 3rd fret and then the 3rd fret. And then next to that, I'm going to play the 4th fret on the D string. And it goes in order as if I'm reading. So as if I was reading, I am Dan. going across like that. You don't just go, well, I'm done. You read it single notes going across, okay? So that 3, 3, 4 there will look like, or sound like on the guitar, is going to be the 3rd fret of the A string, which is here, and again the 3rd fret of the A string, which is here, and then the 4th fret of the D string. So that very dissonant sounding guitar part would go like this. Which is pretty brutal. So that's how you read it. So you read it like a book, you know, as you would read words on the page. It's the same thing with the guitar tab. You read it across, and all you got to do is match up, well, what fret am I being told to do? So 3rd fret, or 4th fret, and what string is it on? And it is as easy as that. Okay, so that's the basic idea. Now, when it comes to rhythm, let's add one more element to this, okay? So let's add this. Okay, so now what I've got is a bar line. So this line here is the bar line, as if to say, let's say I'm in the time signature of 4/4. So that's the most typical time signature when you're learning the guitar. 4 beats to a bar. So within this time here, so between that bar and the start of the music, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 beats. And it's just even. It's like roughly even across the bar. And then it's the end of the bar, and then you're into the next bar along. Okay. So within that time of 1, 2, 3, 4, I'm playing these notes here. Okay. So that's as much information rhythmically as I'm going to get. So it looks to me like I'm playing 3 on the first beat, 3 on the second beat, 4 on the third beat, and then just leaving a bit of as in letting that 4 ring over into the 4th beat before the end of the bar. Okay. So you can see it's not an exact science when it comes to the rhythm on tab, but that sounds to me like this. So if I was counting 1, 2, 3, 4, it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Who doesn't love a good diminished fifth? That's you'll laugh at that in a year's time when you've learned diminished chords. Right, so that's how we read. Hold on, let's bring this back. That's how we read it so far. Okay, so do double check that with the notes on the blog post. So click the link below. Now let's just develop that one more. Okay, so if we now take that and just make it expand it a little bit. So I'm just gonna, for the purpose of now looking a bit more like a proper tab, I'm gonna make the lines much thinner together. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm gonna have a couple of bars. So it's going to look like that, okay? And I'm going to put a little time signature at the beginning, 4/4. Okay, now let's make a nice little tab. So now I've got a 3-bar tab. Ta-da! So each bar is 4 beats because it's 4/4 time signature, and I've got 3 bars to fill out. So now I'm going to do something really fun. I'm going to create the first bar, which is going to be like this. Okay, create the second bar, and then on the final bar, I'm going to do the last thing I want to show you today. Okay, so have a little look at this. Ta-dum. So let's just deal with the first 2 bars first. So the first 2 bars, this bar here on the E string, remember this lower one, it's upside down guitar neck, right? So the lowest E string, the thickest string, is now playing fret number 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay. And then the second bar is playing on the A string, fret number 1, 2, 3, and 4. And you can see that looks nicely divided across the bar. So it's going to probably sound something like this. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I've literally read that across. The first bar is just 1, 2, 3, 4 on the E string. The second bar is 1, 2, 3, 4 on the A string, okay? Hopefully that makes sense. So the rhythm is not a precise art. I would probably, just to double check that, I would need to listen to whatever audio it is that I'm playing, okay? That's how it is with tab. You have to also use your ears. Now then, that last bar then, the last thing I'm going to talk about today, is what is this then? What does this mean? So in that last bar, I'm actually just playing, I'm playing a load of notes, but they're all in the same beat, as you can see. And that's how you write a chord on tab, okay? So let me just, above that for a second, let me just write this. So above there, I've written it out as if it was a chord chart. So in this bar, I'm playing an E minor. So if we spell this out, we've got low E on the E string, open, so naught is nothing. Then 2 and 2, so on the A string and the D string, we've got the 2nd fret, pressed down, and then open, open, open on the rest of the strings. When you translate that, if you gradually put all those onto the guitar, we've got an open E, a 2nd fret, a 2nd fret, and then an open E, open D, open G, open E again. That was awful the way I said that. So that was open G, open B, and open E. And because they're all in one line on the tab, it's telling me play those all together as a chord. Okay? If they were all individually moving, so let's just as an example, if they were those same notes, but they were like this, so let me just build this up. So let's say 1, I'm going to run out of space, but you'll get the idea. So let's just say they were like this. So same notes, this is going to look really messy, but same notes, but they're all now spaced across the bar going forward. You'd have to do that individually. So that would be like an arpeggio. So that would be like this. You might feel like it's just the chord held down and it just sounds like this. There's lots of guitar tab things, like it might say ring out or staccato, where it's just individual, these kind of things, which are much later down the line. That is how you would read tab. So that piece of tab now would sound like this. 1, 2, so this is gonna sound brilliant. 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. And then if I did the last bit, it would be like that. So that's the basics of tab. With that, you kind of have 90% of what you need. Beyond that, it's just the extra, you know, there's when you see wavy lines or bends and all these things. And these we come across gradually. So as we learn these techniques, especially in our courses on the Guitar Club site, as we learn the bends and the vibrato and all of this stuff, the rests, then we do cover that in tab. But it's better to just gradually learn that as you get to it, rather than just sit here and go through all of those, because there's so many. But what I would say is there are pros and cons of using tab as something to read. So the main pros are that it's once you get the base of it, it's very easy and quick to get the information you need. So if you're just looking to learn a riff and you're just looking to like, oh man, what is that really cool Layla unplugged thing, you'll very quickly be able to find a tab. There's loads of free resources online. That's another pro of it. And then you can find, okay, I can quite quickly find this and piece this together roughly using your ear, of course. So that's a massive pro of it. You know, you've got so many resources for free to find guitar tab. Be aware though, it's written by just anyone, a lot of it all over the web. So use your ears predominantly. It's easy to get the information you need quite quickly. And there are also amazing resources like Guitar Pro, our good friends at Guitar Pro, who have created this incredible platform whereby you can write the tab out that you want, you can hear it back, you can also get official tabs from them which have been checked over. So Guitar Pro is a really cool source of developing your guitar tab skills, and we'll leave some links below. We've also got a really cool video of Ollie with Thomas from Guitar Pro having a little bit of fun. So check that out. We'll put the link here as well. So they're the main kind of pros of guitar tab. Now, there's also a couple of cons to bear in mind. So the main one I've spoken about a lot already, the idea that there's no rhythm. The rhythm is what you're listening to. So that's a con, but I also kind of think of that as a positive in that you've therefore got to develop your ear. That's very important. The other thing that's a con is it can sometimes give you too much information. So when you're looking at these chords, if you're kind of trying to learn a track that's kind of got like this, learning that as a tab would be quite full on, to be honest, because you're going to see enormous amounts of notes, as chords. You're going to see 5, 7, 5, 6 as one chord, and then the whole strumming of it means it will just look really cluttered and horrible. Therefore, in instances like that, it's not as useful to learn tabs. Tabs are really great for like learning solos and riffs and stuff where there's little bits of chords dotted around, but mainly kind of single note or kind of, double note stuff like that. That's great. But that is one of the cons to bear in mind. The final con, and something just to be aware of, is over-reliance on tabs. So don't overuse it. Once you learn how to use it and we've got past the kind of beginner stage, etc., developing your ear. So once you know a little bit of the theory and you're like, oh, actually, this song is probably in this key and it probably uses these scales. Can I work this out before I go to tab? And then use tab later if you need to kind of refine it. That's a super important part of the whole tab process, realizing that it's a guide and it's something that shouldn't replace your ear training. So there we have it, guys. I hope you've enjoyed that lesson on how to read tab. Remember that we've got a great write-up of this all below if you want to check it out over on our Guitar Club. And if you're interested in taking any courses, please do check out the rest of the site, as there's loads of amazing beginner stuff and pathways ready for you to go.